Hey, my friends, we are going to look at the next of the decks that I brought back from the Reader's Studio with me. Another one I bought. This is the last of the decks I bought while I was there. And it's also, I have one more Reader's Studio deck that was a door prize that I like, and I'm going to share with you. This is the deck that I have been putting off making a video about for a few reasons. One, I really wanted to spend some time with it, which, because it's so unique, I wanted to just sort of, spend some time with it. I said what I said. The other thing is that it is an AI deck. Now, I didn't know that when I bought it. But I'm showing it anyway, and I'm showing it for a few reasons. I, like most of you, have very strong feelings about the use of AI, particularly by the tech industry. And, of course, the fact that it scoops information and sucks it from wherever it wants to without crediting, its source material is a problem. So, yeah, I mean, that's that. And as a writer, like ChatGPT, I'm over. You know what I mean? It's like we're constantly eliminating jobs with technology that, are the jobs people enjoy doing and leave us with the crap. There's a meme out there that I fully agree with that's sort of like, AI's out here writing poetry and painting while the rest of us are working shitty jobs. All of that is true. As an educator and a learning advocate in my day job, I think that there is potential for AI to be useful from a learning and accessibility standpoint. And so I'm not an absolutist about it, but I am interested in regulation for sure. And it's a new thing, right? So we don't know all the answers. But what I do know is that for someone in a dangerous job, creating an AI simulation to replicate that reality rather than putting them in a dangerous situation, to me, is a good thing. Now, simulations are not new, but the conditions under which, artificial intelligence and, augmented reality can create more realistic simulations, the better. And also from an accessibility standpoint in terms of mobility issues, also learning disabilities and differences, etc. These kinds of things I think can help. AI can help with. Now, in terms of AI art, not really into it. I don't know that I would have gotten this deck if I had known that, but here's the story, and here's why I'm showing it to you. First of all, this deck was created by the creator for themselves. It was just a thing that they made for themselves. They are an artist and a sculptor primarily, and I'm just going to read you this from the guidebook, right? Because I think they talk about it better than I could. So in the summer of 2022, I began playing around with the Midjourney AI art generator. I've used a variety of AI art tools and frankly wasn't impressed, but I felt right away that there was something special about Midjourney. Now, I don't know anything about Midjourney. I mean, ChatGPT is the one I know most about, but I know what it is. I haven't used it. I felt like it had an essence or spirit of its own, and I started doing magical workings based around this premise, including generating sigils inspired by the works of Austin Osman Spare, using the William S. Burroughs cut-up method to create chains of prompts and treating Midjourney as a direct divination tool, plugging my queries and seeing what it would dream up for me. Now, this is an interesting thing to me because I have had conversations with people about whether one could divine with AI, and I think you could. I think you can divine with anything. Again, whether you would want to or not is a personal decision, but, again, that's why I'm reading this, because I think this artist's journey is really interesting. Through that process, it became clear to me that, like tarot itself, Midjourney is very good at distilling things down to a seemingly universal language of symbology through tapping in our collective languages of symbol and representations. Midjourney reads our text prompts and thinks, this reminds me of something, and builds an image based on that association. And when we intuitively read the tarot, look at an image and think, this reminds me of something, and build an interpretation based on that image, right? I misread that, but you get what she's saying, or they're saying. At this point, I began experimenting in earnest with generating AI cards, originally for my own use, created these images with AI while working in a scrying state of mind, meditating, and seeking energies much more vast than myself, trying to tap into that universality that I felt within the AI's learning. So this goes on, and explains how they created the deck, and it's really interesting to me, and I think that it's worth looking at. I think their biography is really interesting. I think then the concept of the deck itself becomes interesting too, because the idea behind this is sort of recreating or creating in the style of Neolithic cave paintings, right? Lascaux, for example, to create a tarot deck. And for me, there's something really amazing about the idea of using the world's newest technology to create something akin to the world's oldest technology, right, which is cave paintings. So for me, that's really fascinating. Whatever your feelings are on AI are fair. I'm not endorsing AI as an art creation tool, or the problematic realities of where it gets its information. The other thing I'm going to say too about tarot specifically is that tarot is stolen artwork. It has been since the time the Waite-Smith deck was created. I mean, every deck is based on that or the Thoth or the Marseille. The publishing world is such that Pamela Coleman Smith didn't make really any money off of her deck, and it has and artists who have used that image or those images have made money. I'm not saying there's a lot of money to be made in deck creation, but the point being that that is a tool that was created and has been used and modified and messed with, sometimes with credit, sometimes without, for its entire career, right? Its entire existence. So when we're talking tarot, the ideas of, imagery, we're constantly iterating off of what Waite and Smith made, or Crowley, and Harris. So that's changing, of course. But for me, the idea of derivative, imagery for tarot is just par for the course. So you're not going to be seeing a whole lot of AI decks here, but this is one that I felt like I really wanted to show you and talk about. It also doesn't hurt that I'm so captivated by it. It's fascinating to me, which is another reason why I wanted to spend a little time with it before I made a video. The other ones didn't really need that time spent. So that's my long kind of preamble, my 7.5-minute preamble about this deck, about AI, and why I'm showing it to you. And I leave you to make your own conclusions, right? Like that's I'm not here to like tell you what to think. I guess I am in some ways, but that's not really my goal. So anyway, the creation of this is really interesting. There was an aliveness that the author goes on to explain, Linnae Ariadne-Zebest, about how the algorithms, the math, the things change as new information is processed, and so you can never get the same image again. And as they went to go through the creation of the images, sometimes they went back to edit and they couldn't redo it. And so there's something very of a moment in the creation of these images that is not unlike a reading. It took a snapshot of itself at the moment of creation. They did, along with their partner, create additional, things to make the cards more usable, little doctoring, color grading, that sort of thing. But for the most part, these are the images as they were created, the day that they were created. So having now given you that long preamble, I'm going to show you the deck. And here we go. So this is the Primordial Dreams Tarot, again by Linnae Ariadne-Zebest. And it's quite striking, if I say so myself. So a few things to say about this. First of all, this may be the best tarot card stock I have ever encountered. I adore this. It is linen, but it's not slippery like most linen. It's thin, but it doesn't feel flimsy. It shuffles incredible. I'm going to show you that shortly. I sort of like this metallic edging here. You can't really see. Oh, there you go. Kind of see that there. It's quite striking. Yeah. And so I love it. I quite like the back. I think there's a lot to recommend to this deck, honestly, aside from any reservations we have about the tools used to create it. There's a little card that comes with it that gives you the court symbols. So this is an interesting deck in terms of knowing which card you're looking at, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But each of the courts, initiate is the page, hero is the knight, mother, queen, father, king, has this little symbol on the card to indicate what it is. And then the color scheme of the minors do the same. So air in this case is wands. Now I got a question on Instagram of how I work with that. I don't pay attention to that. I just read the air cards as swords and the fire swords as wands. There's nothing in the artwork that sort of pulls me in any direction, frankly. But the color palette, there's a bluishness to the water, a reddishness to the fire, a brown to earth, and yellow to air. There's no text on the cards. And what you're going to see in the minors is that there's also not repetitive arrangements of symbols. There are dots that you can count, and some symbols. There are no titles or numbers on the minors. And so what I did for me, and what I should have done really to start before I started working with this, was do this, but I didn't, because I wanted to sort of see how it felt. I wrote the major arcana number on each of the majors in the bottom corner, and then for each of the minors, it's really hard to see here, but I wrote like 1 W for 1 water, ace of water, 2, so just that I could glance really quickly at the bottom corner and see immediately what I was looking at. Most of them, when you see them in context of each other, you can see, oh yeah, that's the fool. But outside of context to each other, it's a little harder. That was by the creator's design. I respect that. I just like to know what I'm looking at immediately, or close to immediately. So here we go. Let's look at the cards. This is the Fool. And you can see that with each of them, there's a vibe of the card. And what the creator did was sort of give it the meanings, give the Midjourney the meanings of the cards, and then see what it came back with. So here's the Fool. Here's the Magician. Now, the titles are slightly different in some cases as well, but not the Fool and the Magician. I should say, too, I've taken them out, but there's 2 extra cards that I never work with extra cards. So we have the Dreamer and the Seeker. And these are part of the majors. But I took them out. So the Magician. So you're going to see when you look at them that there is an energy of the card in the Waite-Smith tradition to the image. And to me, it's very cool and fascinating, and I find it, again, really, really striking is the word I keep reaching for, because there's nothing like it. And that's another reason I guess I'm showing it too, is that I've never seen anything like this before. And you really do get that feeling, although the colors are stronger, more saturated, of a painting, in a cave. And so this would be the patriarch, and this would be the matriarch, rather than the empress and the emperor. This is the Hierophant, in this case the priest, I believe they call it. Yep. The Lovers. And again, every time these images really tug at me in a way that I'm not used to with a lot of decks. This would be the Chariot, in this case called Victory. It is... I don't know. This is strength. When I was shopping the vendors at the Reader Studio, I kept, Monica Bojerski's table was right next to this, and I showed you her deck, and I kept looking at this and thinking, oh, I kind of want that. This is really interesting. Like, I don't know what to make of this. But I loved the idea, and I was chatting with the creator, and that's when I said, I really need to take this home with me and explore it. So this would have been the Hermit. You see, this is why, like, I wrote a little 9. Oh, I don't even know if you can see it. Just a little 9. It's focusing on my hand and not the damn card. Anyway, like, most people wouldn't see it, and the aim wasn't, it's just to remind me. So here's the wheel. I actually quite like this Wheel of Fortune, although it doesn't really make sense. Neolithically, I don't like Wheels of Fortune traditionally, and I like this. Very clearly, this is Justice. This is Suspension, or the Hanged Man. I love this Death card. I really do. I think it's so cool. Temperance. I like this Devil too, and I like the Devil in this environment, in this landscape, because, again, in a way, the Devil is Neolithic. The Devil kind of comes before human society, before civilization, right? Before colonialism. And so this feels much more, it does look like a devil, right? But it feels much more kind of prehistoric. The Tower. Again, probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense Neolithically, but I quite like it. It's a striking image. There's a word I'm going to keep using. The Star. The Moon. There's a lovely kind of watercolor feel to a lot of these cards. The Sun. and an earthiness. And I think, again, sort of really impressive. This is Judgment, but it's not called Judgment. It is called Creation. I kind of cocked up the number I wrote on the card there, so you can't quite see that it's 20, and then I wrote XX underneath it, and then I cocked up the world card too. But that's the world card. And so now we get into the minors. And so, again, the author associates fire with swords. I don't see any reason that you have to follow suit. But it's up to you. I am a fire wands guy, but really the elemental is more important to me in most cases anyway. So here's the ace of fire, the 2. Now, it isn't very Waite-Smith, and so this is probably going to be a fairly hard deck to read if you are devoted to specifically that system. Which is one reason why I encourage folks to find ways of reading non-situational pits, right? Because this isn't giving necessarily the 2 of Wands as we know it. But what it is doing is opening an invitation to what is the 2 of Wands. Really, this would be the 2 of Swords anyway, right? But the 2 of Wands equality. 3. 4. It's very abstract, obviously, or abstracted, or non-literal, non-representational. To me, it's no different from reading with something like the Margareta Peterson, which is one of my favorite decks. So, I'm a reader for whom the images contribute, but they aren't the whole reading. So here's what I mean by the dots that you can see. There's 5 dots, 4 dots. So it's easy to see what number you're looking at. The hard thing is that in a spread, you're not always sure what suit it is. So these wands are fire. This fire is very red. In a spread, though, the palette is so earthy that in some of the cards you really have to look closely to sort of see what color you're looking at. And so writing on the card, as I did, right there, 7 fire, helps me. I could have used the elemental symbol, but I always forget which one is which, so I'm not good with remembering symbols. It's one reason why I'm very bad at astrology, is that I can't remember which glyph goes to which planet or sign. I know most of them, but here's the 9 and then the 10. I find these really striking. Again, I'm using that word a lot. They're captivating. I'm moved by them in a way. And I don't mean like, oh my God, it's like the most beautiful thing. I just mean that there's something there. There's something that creates sensation, creates feeling, which I find interesting. So then we get into, again, the courts and these little symbols. So this is the initiate or the page. This would be the hero or the knight of fire, the mother, and then the father. And so here we are now in the suit of water. So there's blue domination. Blue domination? That sounds so weird. Blue colors are prevalent here. So this is the ace, the 2. The 3. I can see that this is not a deck for everybody, and that wasn't ever the intention of the creator, right? The creator wanted to do this for themselves and print it out at home, and they weren't worried about cardstock, and they weren't worried about, rounded corners, they say. So, it just became a thing that people were like, oh, I like this, I want this, you should kickstart this, and they did. So the 4, the 5, I find this card quite striking, to return to that word. One thing that I would encourage readers to do, whether or not you like this deck, is to, again, find a way of reading that doesn't rely just on the image, so that you can expand your reading style to other decks. A deck, this may not be for you, but maybe the Margareta Peterson is. Or, it's another abstracted deck. The Japaridza is sort of abstracted, which is another one that I love. In any Marseille deck. So, I'll plug my books, both Your Tarot Toolkit and Tarot on Earth, because they can both help you do that. But what I found is that it's made me a more open reader, by which I mean I'm more adventurous, I'm more willing to experiment and try things. And try decks that I might not have, and systems that I might not have. And that really, I think, made me a better tarot reader because I can pull things from other systems, but it also challenged me to be more open to the potential for card meanings, and to respond to different decks in different ways. So this would be the Ten of Water, and now again we get into the courts. This is the Initiate, the Hero, Mother, and Father. So now we get into the suit of Air, and we get the Ace. So again, there's that single dot there. 2, 3, 4. This is an interesting card. I quite like it. It's the only person sort of figure in the whole deck, really, that has kind of a recognizably fully human figure. And this is a very weirdly like 1920s style, this dress kind of feel. Although it may not be a person. I mean, this is Air, but you can kind of see some Five of Wands going on. But again, the artwork isn't so specifically Waite-Smith that it really matters, you know. And I react to images more as a secondary response. Certainly, like the flow of an. So I'll do an example at the end of this. This is already a long video anyway. 8, 9, 10. And then again, in the Initiate, Hero, Mother, Father. And then finally the suit of Earth. So very brown, very earthy, very gray. And the Ace. 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then the final set of courts, we have the Initiate, the Hero, Mother, and Father. So that is a walkthrough of the deck. Let's zoom out. I'll shuffle it for you, and I'll just do a quick sort of sample example. I may not do a whole reading, but as I said, I love this cardstock. It shuffles so well. It's the best shuffling cardstock I think I've ever encountered because the resistance is so good. I'm so used to decks that don't shuffle well. It's thin, too, and I mean, that's the other amazing thing is that, you know, it's resilient, but it's a very thin deck, you know. So I'll compare it to a much. This is the new Zerner Farber, which is from Red Feather, and you can see it's much thicker. And they use thick cardstock anyway, but much thicker. And I can shuffle that, but this is like everybody should be using this cardstock. I think. I don't think there's anyone who would dislike this cardstock, but I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not. You know, I can't speak for everybody. But I love it. Certainly for linen, because my problem with linen is frequently that it slips and it's hard to shuffle. And I enjoy shuffling, so I want to enjoy, you know, I want to enjoy that process. I think the only AI deck I've ever covered other than this was the Alves Donson, which I actually also found interesting. Not quite like this, because this has a sort of very specific kind of intentionality behind it. Not to say that the other one didn't, it's just that this idea to me is very interesting. So you also see how out of context, out of order, you know, having some kind of clue as to what you're looking at is good. So we have the 3 of Earth. Here, I have to zoom out more. loss of my life. So 3 of Earth, this is the Hanged Man. This is the 8 of Water. This is Temperance. This is the 9 of Earth. The Father of Earth. The 3 of Fire. The 4 of Earth. And the 10 of Water. Zoom in so you can see a little better. So starting with the 3 of Earth, this could be about money, it could be life. I think it's just about an expansive mood in a restrictive environment. So expansive life goals, restrictive environment. And I'm thinking there might be actually some relationship issues causing this. Like their desire to sort of center the emotional labor of their relationship is compromising their goals, their ability to get life where they want to go. And I say that because of the 8 of Water and the Temperance card, compromising as Temperance. 8 of Water is emotional labor, sort of being stuck. So they're probably being held back by like a relationship. The 9 of Earth, the 3 of Earth, and then the Father of Earth, or the King of Earth here, signal to me, in fact, that they're going to end up breaking out. They can't hold back what's coming forth in their life. And that may not bode well for the relationship. The 10 of Water is the final card, and 10s can signal the end of a relationship. Looking at the bottom row, the 3 of Fire is, again, sort of expansively hot. The 4 of Earth is conservative and stable and sort of stuck, as is the rest of the middle column. This is a reading that's very biased towards Earth, so this person is stuck. And maybe they've made a commitment in a way like that's financial, like they're financially supporting someone else. But in order for them to kind of break through in life, they're really going to have to either renegotiate the relationship as it is or find a new one. Looking at the columns now, they can't stay stuck this way forever. The 9 is going to bust through, the 9 of Earth. Like, life is just going to bust through. They're going to end up having to go on this journey of lighting their fire, sustaining their own fire. You talked about the middle row, but this emotional labor is stunting the growth that they've got. And this Temperance, which is compromised here, is going to inevitably get broken through and probably be damaging to the relationship. So that's a quick, but like again, like how much did the images play? This image was very evocative for me, though I don't know why. It was like this whole row was very like caretakery. I don't, again, work with the image pretty much. What this does though is give me some things I can play with, in terms of color tone, that earthiness feels very heavy. The Temperance and the Hanged Man both feel like there's like a leaden darkness to this this reading, and so they actually need to fly away. There's no air. There's not much fire. There's not much water. It's all earth. They're all being weighted down, lugged down. But that doesn't really come from the image as much. So again, like the image is sort of secondary to me, but these don't get in the way. And actually, I find something just so arresting about it. And also another thing is that it's sort of harder for a client to jump to conclusions about what they're seeing because this is so non-representational and not, the three pentacles of people building a cathedral, right? So anyway, I really think this is a fascinating work. I don't, yet know how much use I'll get out of it, but I'm very, very interested in it and in the creation process. And just, I think it's a fascinating experiment. And I like it, for what it is. I like it a lot. I love the cardstock, love the print quality. The color palettes are gorgeous. And up close, it really is beautiful. I keep saying striking. It's very striking. So I hope you enjoyed this. Take care, be good, and we will talk soon.